Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Global Gaming Network channel, where we get the opportunity to go over everything to do with esports across the entirety of the world. Plenty to dive into today. Call of Duty, League of Legends, Valorant, as well as Counterstrike is kicking off across the globe. This is Today in Esports. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on this fine Thursday. As I was saying, Today in Esports is back with another episode ahead of the weekend. My name is Andy. Joined with me as always is Chris. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. As you said, we have a lot of esports to cover, so let's go ahead and jump into Call of Duty. We're going into the qualifying 2 for Major 3, so let's take a look at those standings real quick. At the top of the pack, we have Optic and LA Thieves, so let's talk about those bottom 3 teams: Las Vegas Falcons, LA Gorilla Mates, and Cloud9 New York.
Yeah, absolutely. LAG, LFF, Cloud9 New York, all in a really bad spot. I mean, they're all winless so far, and even more so when it comes down to the overall standings. They're actually outside the top 8. And if you place outside the top 8 going in towards the final leg of the season, you just don't qualify for champs. So there's a lot of pressure on a lot of these teams to be able to compete at the highest level to not only just do well at Major 3, but also make champs. So we're going to start the conversation here with Los Angeles Gorilla Mates. They just made a 2-man change. They brought in Johnny, and they also brought in Fellow. Post losing Skies to Optic, benching him. Linz is now on the bench. Priest is over towards the Falcons. You feel like this team's still trying to find themselves. And although they did have a very tough Week 1 opponent against the Carolina Royal Ravens, I still am very hopeful that this team will continue to do well. But the Las Vegas Falcons, hey, you won 2 hard points. Congratulations to you. But there's still so much that you have to do. You are sitting at a resounding 0 CDL points, and you hope to make champs. So essentially what you have to do, you have to almost get top 3 at the first Major 3, and then you have to almost get at worst top 6 at Major 4. All while subsequently outplacing everybody else that is ahead of you. So to say that there's a lot to do, that's putting it lightly. But they do have a good team to be able to do so. Again, RCD's world champion, as well as Pred, Priesta, all surrounding with Exit, the one returning member for the Vegas Falcons. And then finally, Cloud9 New York are actually under a magnifying glass as of late. They started off the season pretty decently. They had a really good Major 1. Online qualifiers were decently played, but something's going on with this camp right now. There's a lot of speculation, and even on the Breaking Point podcast, Donnie Temp had alluded that this team was going to be looking at a 1-man change, benching the youngest world champion of all time, Dylan Attach. I don't think that would go over too lightly in the team's dynamic, but it's all just speculation. We'll have to see as things progress. Their schedule isn't exactly favorable for them to be able to do so, but when all push comes to shove, I'm hopeful that Cloud9 New York should be able to turn their season around.
We have a great rundown of those teams, but becoming my quick favorite, the proper picks. What do you have going on this weekend?
Yeah, it's my pleasure. The proper picks, here we go. Starting off on Friday as well, the schedule, we got Optic versus Miami Heretics. I'm going to take Optic over Miami. They just don't look that great. Surge are going to best LA Gorilla Mates. And then I also have Rocker beating Ravens, very high on the Kylo Ken change for the Minnesota Rocker. On over towards Saturday, Atlanta FaZe, #1 team in the game for a reason. They should be able to dispose of the Heretics pretty simply. And then I also got the Green Wall beating the Falcons in that second series as well. This is the bounce back, though. I do have LA Gorilla Mates beating Boston Breach, and then LA Thieves undoubtedly should be able to beat Cloud9. That's what I'm talking about. Their strength of schedule is pretty bad. Rocker are in action on Sunday. They should get the better of Cloud9 New York, and then Surge should beat the Ravens, though you never really know in these online matches. And then to round out the Sunday, we got an absolute banger. LA Thieves versus the Toronto Ultra. Although Toronto Ultra did best Atlanta FaZe in a map 5, I still got Thieves winning this one.
But as always, let us know your picks if you agree or not with Andy, of course. But I can't wait to see how it rounds out and if some of those teams in the bubble start to make it up or not. But again, gonna have to see what happens this weekend.
Yep, and make sure that you tune in back on Monday for the conclusion and some analysis throughout all of those games. But that's enough for the shooty shoots with our controller in our hands. Now we're gonna take a little bit of a focus over towards the Rift with Chris when it comes to League of Legends.
We do have LTA kicking off for their second week of the positional phase. So let's go ahead and take a look at the match day schedule for week 2 of LTA North. We have the Skies versus Cloud9, 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest, which is going to be our match of the day. We have Dignitas versus Team Liquid, then Shopify Rebellion versus Lion. On Sunday, we're going to have 100 Thieves versus the Skies Toast, FlyQuest versus Shopify Rebellion, Team Liquid versus Lion, which will be the match day of Sunday, and then Cloud9 versus Dignitas. And let's go ahead and take a look at those LTA South matches as well. On Saturday, we have Loud versus Keyd Star, IE versus Flux W7M, Red Cannons versus Leviathan, and Pain versus Furia. On Sunday, we'll have Leviathan versus Loud, Keyd Star versus IE, Red Cannons versus Pain, and FW7M versus Furia. All right, switching over to Europe, LEC did have some games on Monday. Team Heretics faced off as MKOI, so let's go ahead and take a look at that match there. All right, jumping straight into it, MKOI down at this point, but a great equalizer from Maruin comes out and allows his team to get the ace on this Rift Herald played here. Jojo coming out from the back is going to go ahead and pick up the kill onto the Corki there, but let's go ahead and take a look at this. There it is. They line up for a perfect double piercing arrow kill from Supa. They're going to pick up that ace and get in the lead. Little finger bang coming out of Miran there, but he's going to keep going at it. Look at this equalizer. He's going to hit all 3 of them, jump, get the harpoon onto the Tristana, get that kill, pick up a second one, but moving up to this top play, there it is. Once again, he sees them in the bush, going to lay down the equalizer, forcing them to go golden, and they're going to pick up another kill here, forcing their way into this game. Finally, at the end, he picks up one last kill, going 6-1-5 in this game number 1 to lead them to a game number 1 victory against Team Heretics. But remember, it is a best of 3. Moving into game number 2, this time it would be all Jojo Pune. Jojo would come out with the Weaver Wall, forcing them to go backwards. That's not the way you want to go. Talia, first blood, picking up for his team. Now, let's see some more plays. Look at this. Getting a great knockback there. Going to force them back. Getting 2 kills, leading to more. And this is exactly what people were expecting now of Jojo once he came to Europe. They want to see these plays coming out of him. And he's doing a great job picking up in the split number 2 here. Now, he sees his team fighting. Weaver Wall once again gonna cut off their escape route, push them back, allow his teams to get more kills here. Supa feeding off of the amounts of CC coming out of him. And here it is, one of the last team fights that made the defining moment. Once again, getting all the knockbacks, just forcing so much damage onto Team Heretics. They can't control it. He's gonna go golden as he stays, allows his team to clean up the rest of these. They're going to get the last ace that they need to start pushing this game in and get the game number 2 win. There goes the Nexus, and that's exactly what Koi were looking for. They get their first win of the season, and what better way to do it? So great job by them. They're going to go 2-1, but let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the standings for LEC after week 2 concluded. Taking a look at the current standings, we have G2 sitting in the top place. Tied for second, we have BDS, Carmine Corp, and Fnatic all at 2-1. In fifth place, we have SKA and Vitality 1-1. Giant X, Koi, and Heretics are all sitting 1-2, while Rogue is sitting in 10th right now, 1-3. And that's what we have for the standings after week 2 of the LEC. So let's go ahead and take a look at the upcoming matches for week number 3. On Saturday, we have BDS versus Team Heretics, G2 versus Rogue, SK versus Carmine Corp, which will be the game of the day. On Sunday, we have Vitality versus Fnatic, and then we have Team BDS versus Koi. On Monday, we'll have SK versus Giant X, and then Heretics versus Carmine Corp.
So much fun stuff happening across League of Legends, and keep in mind, that is just 2 of many different regions. If you want to watch all of it going down, make sure you tune in to all of our different channels here on the Global Gaming Network channel. We love talking about League of Legends. But let's stay in the sphere of Riot for now, and let's shift our focus over towards their tactical shooter. You know what I'm talking about. It's going to be Valorant, baby. And starting off with the Americas, of course, we already went over all of the matches on our Monday's episode that concluded this past weekend. So let's give everybody a reminder of where the groups currently stand. If you're unfamiliar with how the entirety of the VCT system does work, you want to be placing within the top 4 to then go over towards the playoff bracket. In between the 2 groups of Group Alpha and Group Omega, we do have 2 undefeated teams. Crew, Esports, and G2 sit on top of the pecking order amongst everybody else. There are teams that are facing relegation potentially and not missing out on the playoffs, e.g. from Group Alpha as well as Loud. They don't even have a single series win, so Loud really got to figure it out going forward with only so many more games left to play. On the other side, Food Furia, they may have a couple rounds win and a couple maps, sure, but they have yet to put a Series W up on the board as well. And we also have to start a conversation about Leviathan and their fall from grace. Still a lot to go over as we have matches happening this weekend. 100 Thieves versus 2G, G2 versus Leviathan. Doesn't get easier for those guys. Furia taking on Cloud9, and then Sentinels will be taking on Loud. Then we also have Sunday matches. Crew taking on EG should be the match of the weekend, in my opinion. And then NRG versus MIBR. Very excited to be able to see if MIBR continue on with their rampaging ways, and if they make it to the playoff bracket, only losing to G2. But that's all we got as far as the Americas are concerned. Chris, why don't you let us know what's going on in EMEA?
EMEA did kick off yesterday for their week, and we did have some matches go down. First, we had BBL versus KOI, so that match did happen. BBL did 2-0 KOI. They did end up picking up wins on Pearl 13 to 6 in favor of BBL, and then on Icebox they ended up winning 13 to 6 as well. So, or 13 to 9, my mistake. So great job to BBL picking up another win against KOI, who is sitting at the bottom of the bracket with 0 wins so far. On to the next match, we did have Navi versus Giant X, which ended up being a little bit better of a series. It did go in favor 2-1 in favor of Navi, who ended up picking up wins on Pearl and Split, actually going 13-0 on Split. Giant X did get that one win on Fracture, 13 to 9. So a little bit of a consolation prize, but Navi looking pretty good after those two games.
And that's everything to do as far as the VCT EMEA and the Americas are concerned. And, well, VCT EMEA has matches going on throughout all of the weekdays, so they don't have any of those matches. But why don't you run us through as far as those standings are concerned, man?
Yep, so we do have some of those standings. We go ahead and have Fnatic, as I said, took that win. So they're going to be 2-0 along with Team Heretics in that group alpha. Then we have Navi versus Team Vitality sitting in the 3rd and 4th spot. Apex and Giant X will be sitting in the 5th and 6th. Group Omega, Foot is sitting with 2 wins to 0 in the Group Omega, and then BBL, Gentle Mate, Team Liquid, Carmine Corp, and KOI round out Team Group Omega as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the schedule here. As I said, we already had those matches on Wednesday, KOI versus BBL, Giant X versus Navi. And then on Thursday, we had Team Liquid versus Foot. We'll have Vitality and Team Heretics later today as well. And then on Friday, we'll have Apex versus Fnatic and M8 versus Carmine Corp.
Again, VCT EMEA in America is still going onwards, but we still have to keep in mind that the Pacific region, as well as the Chinese region, are very much so still competing, and you have to keep an eye on those regions. They are absolutely twisted, but we like to keep a focus on the Americas and the EMEA regions here. But we're going to put the games back on the shelf for a short while as we get ready for our news roundup for this week. We're going to be starting off with some Marvel Rivals discussion as the esport is starting to kick off. It's turning a lot of heads. Sentinels versus 100 Thieves. The battle continues in a different esport, but Sentinels seem to be the better team at this moment in time.
And then switching over, we do have ALGS. We'll be kicking off a huge open. So let us know if you're excited for any teams or who we should be looking out for going into that.
And that's all we got as far as the news is concerned. Again, tag us, get into the conversation with us, because we know that there's a lot going on as far as esports are concerned. We only have so much time on the show for crying out loud. But let's talk about the games once again. Counterstrike is ongoing at the time of this recording, going down as far as Bucharest is concerned. I'm talking about PGL, of course, and we're going to be rounding out a couple of these games, starting off with Mongolz versus Apogee. First up, we had a number 4 ranked team and a tournament favorite, but stumbled in round 1 with a 1-2 loss to 3D Max. Apogee, ranked 51st, fought their way through the European qualifier, but started 0-1 after a 2-0 loss to Furia. Jacob was electric in this series, racking up 18 kills in just 8 deaths, averaging a wild 148 damage per round. And Zeno tried their best to carry Mongolz with their 10 kills, but Apogee sealed it 13-8. Prism dominated the second half with 12 kills and only 5 deaths. Jacob took MVP honors with 24 kills on map 2 on Nuke. Apogee's pick followed the same script. 8-4 at the first half, with Hypex shining with 12 kills. Jacob then closed it out with 13 kills in the second half, leading Apogee to a 2-0 sweep. Jacob owned the series with 45 kills. What an upset. Apogee has been turning heads ever since that qualifier win, but here with the win over Mongolz, they then boast a 2-1 record.
Well, we can't get enough of Apogee, as we are going to also look at them take on Astralis as well in their game there. So let's go ahead and jump into that match and see how they did. Apogee would have their number 13 in the Valve ranking system. They beat FaZe and won, but they took map 1 to Mirage. What was their pick? They would end the first half 9-3 with them being up. And then, well, we go on to the second half and they would win 13-8. What a great job by them. We see them getting here again, the bomb defusal out. No, the knife's coming out. Can they get the kill? Well, they get the round, and that's all that matters. 12-3 here. They would allow Astralis to get back a little bit. As I said, they did get up to it at 8 rounds, but that was it. Apogee is going ahead and finish it out. The map number 2 would take place on Ancient, and here it is. Apogee, once again, trying to get the 2. They would get the win here as well, 13-9, where they would pick up their second win.
Then we moved over towards a couple of elimination matches. Again, on the highs and lows, if you lose your third match, you donezo bonanza, you headed on home. If you win, well, you get to play another series. We're going to jump into the Falcons versus RA for the first elimination match. Falcons, a tournament favorite, have faltered in the Swiss stage, while RA, aka Pain Gaming, sits at 1-2 after losses to FaZe and Aurora. Map 1 on Inferno was tight. It was a 6-6 half. RA Somebody carried with 13 kills, but Falcons exploded in the second half, winning 13-6 without dropping a single round. Nico was a clutch player in this entire game. 8 kills, 1 death, finishing with 18 kills as the map MVP. Map 2, we brought it on over to Train, was Falcons Clinic. They led 10-2 at the halftime, with Kaysen dominating with a 14 kills and 139 damage average. RA's Kays had 13 kills, but his team absolutely crumbled. Falcons wrapped it up 13-2, and RA and Summer went killless in the second half, while Kaysen led with 15 kills. But Miko took the series MVP with 32 kills. Falcons were able to win the series. They'll live to fight another day.
Staying in the lower, we have another do or die match between Furia and Mongolz. Let's go ahead and jump into that one to see who's the winner. We'd have Mongolz coming in 1-2. They're one of the top teams, but they would end up going down 7-5 in this first half. Mongolz looking a little uncharacteristic in these last couple games that they had. Need to turn it up, and they would. In the second half, they would finally bring it back to where they could win the map 13-9, leading to only 2 rounds for Furia to come back. Map number 2. They hope they can get this win, and they did. They would end the half 6-6, another very close one, but again, they would pull it out. This time a little closer though, as Furia would be able to get a couple of the kills. So on the T-side swap, 9-10 would have an amazing half, dropping only 12 kills, 5 deaths, would have 104.1 damage per round, and this would allow them to lead into the map. As I said, look at this, down once again, but down but not out. End up ending the map 13-11 to take their win and continue their run in the PGL. Doing a great job there. We had the end, as we see, Ms. Ho would have 26 kills, only 14 deaths, and 104 damage per round.
This is a lot of action going on as far as PGL Bucharest is concerned. A lot of round Swiss stages. We already have teams that are confirmed for the playoffs. Teams, again, at the point of this recording are still competing, so we actually don't have the playoff bracket for you all. So you want to make sure that you tune in on Monday. All of the action for PGL. We're going to be crowning a champion at the end of Sunday, but you want to make sure that you're tuning in to all the different facets possible, whether that's Liquidpedia, HLTV, and the PGL broadcast as well. I will be seated. Should be an absolute fun tournament to see the conclusion. But with all of that said in mind, we only covered about 4 games so far. We got a lot of highlights to go over as well here, guys. Apogee versus Aurora to start off. Round 8 on Anubis. Hypex with an AWP. How do you swing that in the first place? Inter survive. Legacy versus Astralis. Round 14. How about an ace with the FAMAS? Everybody just swinging. Might as well give them the life. 3D Max versus Aurora. Dust 2. Round 23. Maka makes an insane spray transfer to clutch the round. Then we go over to Complexity versus G2. How about a little bonk on the head with the nade and a popcorn TK to come along the way? Yeah, I'd be pissed. G2 still won that round, by the way. Gamer Legion versus Falcons. Round 13 on Mirage. Had PR mowing him down just for the clutch. Watch this as they attempt to try to swing him through the smoke. He gets the first, gets the read as well towards the next, ends up getting the fire kill, and then it's a 1v1 with the nade, gets the swing, bang, headshot, dead. Now over to Virtus Pro versus Rare Atom, round 16 on Mirage. K's near solo hold on the B bomb site. How do you not expect someone to be on the backside of the dugout? Knows that there's got to be a player inside of the apartments. Easy read. His teammate picks it up. absolute insanity incarnate happening in PGL Bucharest. But as I was saying, the tournament will conclude at the end of this weekend. Did we miss anything as far as today in esports are concerned? There's a lot going on, and we hope you all are going to be seated with us this upcoming Monday to go over all of the action that concluded this past weekend. On behalf of everybody involved, this has been Today in Esports.